Um, let's just start with a general question here about why is hydrogen so interesting as a potential fuel source? What do you think is really interesting about it? What gets you excited? What gets you up in the morning if you're working in the space of hydrogen?
Gosh, this is a 20-minute panel, so I'll try and keep it condensed. But hydrogen is super exciting. I think we're all aware, don't need to preach the converted here. We're behind on global targets. We could hit 1.5 by 2040. It's happening. Well, there is no silver bullet. We've gone down electric routes. That is part of the solution, but there is an untapped power source that is abundantly available in our universe. We call it the magic molecule because it literally comes from the same places that plants and nature get their sources. It's solar, water, and wind. And we can harness that for green power. So it's untapped. We're talking about it. I think if you might have some people here that know a little bit about hydrogen, generally by the time hopefully we've finished this discussion, you'll be wondering why this isn't being used more quickly, and we'll talk about the challenges of it. But it really is the magic molecule, and it's going to get us further faster. It answers the question about range. It answers the questions about refueling times. It can be used for different modes of transports. Electric in cities is great for bringing down pollution levels, but it doesn't reach where we need. Transport is about 25 to 30% of global emissions. That's not just the cars we drive. It's the trucks, it's the buses, it's the ships, it's the air freight. We need to look at the whole spectrum. And electric simply cannot reach that far. So we're using sport. So Extreme E was electric. We've done 4 years on electric racing, proving the capabilities in extreme environments. And we're evolving our whole championship to become Extreme H, the world's first hydrogen racing series, which will get ready racing later this year. And it's going to test out hydrogen technologies in the way only sports can. And sports accelerates R&D tenfold. You're putting hydrogen fuel cells, which are seen as quite a delicate technology. You can be racing it wheel to wheel. There will be crashes. We'll be showing that this technology is not only safe, it performs in high pressure environments, in extreme environments all around the world. And not only is it that we're looking at the transport side of things, I know we're here to talk about transport, but there's a whole ecosystem behind this mobility. It's event power. It's, the world is going up and up in terms of its energy in consumption. I read a scary stat yesterday that I think we're going to increase energy consumption globally by 55% over the next 20 years. I think about 20% of that from data centers alone, AI data centers. We need to find a technology that can help us support that without burning our planet down. And hydrogen is that solution. It's untapped so far. It's in its infancy, but it's an exciting stage where we were with electric probably 15 years ago.
James, you asked me why I said this was another form of entertainment. And one of the comments I've heard is that some of the fans miss the rev of an engine and the noise when they go to an extreme H race. Now, I understand that you're thinking about how to produce an internal combustion engine that runs off of hydrogen. What does that actually, my understanding, not an engineer, but that you can bring noise back with an internal combustion engine run on hydrogen. What are you actually doing? Can you explain that to us?
A couple of things there. First of all, yes, you can have a lot of noise.
Great. So everyone will be happy again.
We are not in the racing world. So I'm going to bring us for the transport side of things. The other, all the points mentioned just now cover most of the things that I was going to say. But there is one missing, which is cost. We don't believe that anything is worth doing in trying to push into the commercial world unless it is commercially viable. People just won't do it. So what we've got to do is make sure that we can deliver something that is cost comparative to what's available today. So that is what we're doing with the hydrogen engine. We believe that within the next couple of years, we should be in a position to be able to repower a vehicle, provide it to a supermarket, let's say, for instance, and they can use that vehicle at the same cost, the same operational methods that they have at the moment, and be able to continue to run their business in a commercially viable way. It's the quickest and best way to convert vehicles, and it is cost effective.
Why are you so confident it's scalable?
Two reasons. We're not changing that much. We're putting an engine in a vehicle. And yes, I know we're going to be asked, is the NOx? Yes, there is some NOx, but you can deal with that. And it's scalable because we've set our business up in such a way that we're working with the biggest supplier of engines in the West, Cummins. We're also talking to companies in Korea. So we can bring engines in quite quickly. It takes us about 3 weeks, we reckon, to have converted a vehicle, to get it certified, get it out there on the streets, put it back again into service. We can scale up large volumes of vehicles very quickly. And there's another huge advantage about using the hydrogen internal combustion engine is you do not need pure hydrogen in the way that you do for a fuel cell. So you can get your hydrogen in slightly different ways. And if you chuck hydrogen down a pipeline at the moment, especially a pipeline that's been used for something else, you're going to get impurities. You can't help it. It's just going to happen. That will ruin your fuel cell. Put that same fuel into an engine, not a problem. The emission side of it, you're down to, we believe, we're almost certain now that you can get down to, let's say, near zero. What is zero? There's huge debates about what zero is. Actually, just say it wasn't quite perfectly zero. Aren't we a hell of a lot better off for getting out there and actually getting down to very near zero? We do believe that the hydrogen engines can be brought down to zero. However, it's yet to be fully proven, but it's heading that way. And the other thing about hydrogen is the fuel. Fuel now, if you're looking at trucks, we're starting off looking at trucks being based in depots. So big truck fleets which have big depots. A supermarket might have 10 depots across the country. We're looking at moving into those companies. We're talking to one of the biggest at the moment. We're very actively involved with them. And the idea is that we get this out there and we actually get hydrogen being used step by step. Look at the big world. We have a huge target, but take baby steps. Get one distribution centre sorted with hydrogen down the south of the country. Move to one in the Midlands, go northeast, go Scotland, go Wales. Each time you're putting in place fueling that can be shared by other people. You're starting to actually get it going. Sorry, that's a bit long-winded.
That's okay. Julia, where do you find enough hydrogen to actually be able to run an entire sports competition, I don't know what we want to call it, sports circuit off of?
So we've been using hydrogen behind the scenes of our production, our championship for the last 5 years. We started off as we talk about baby steps. We've been improving the technology and we've been growing over time. So it's definitely scalable from our point of view. But we used to make it on our site from literally putting out some solar panels. We have an electrolyzer. Over the weeks leading up to the race, we'd charge and create enough green hydrogen that we could use just to charge the race vehicles. We then looked at, there's an opportunity here to actually, because we operate quite in off-grid remote environments, to scale up our use of hydrogen on site and reduce our use of, it's not diesel generators, but HVO. There is still NOx attributed to those, but that is the gold class of energy for events. So over the last 4 years, we've scaled up from 10% hydrogen production to 80% at our last event. So that's about enough power to cover 1,000 homes. That was in Scotland. But then more widely, one of the issues with access to hydrogen at the moment is, it's that access to infrastructure. The incentives aren't there, and the investment. What we're looking at is actually creating our hydrogen in Saudi Arabia. So you have an abundant source of energy there, and Saudi Arabia is key to this. I know coming to conferences on sustainability and talking about Saudi Arabia, you can get a few frowns, but we need them to shift their energy mix. If we can incentivize Saudi Arabia to diversify its energy portfolio and realize that they have an abundant source of energy available to them, like other countries do, but that we need to get them to shift their dial to actually using what's commonly available to them, then we can do that. So we create our hydrogen in Saudi Arabia, and then we transport it using methanol. Because once you put hydrogen into liquid form, it's much more dense. You can store a lot more hydrogen within that carrier. And then when we get to site, we use a reformer, we crack it, methanol comes out, which is not harmful to the environment, and we get the hydrogen. So it is possible to do that. And I know we've talked about finding, those localized supply areas, but we can do that and transport it.
Julia, I want to ask, because my understanding is the logic behind Extreme H is sort of twofold. One, it creates a greater audience for the sport because you have men and women racing together. So all of a sudden, instead of traditional car racing, which is very much a male-dominant audience, a male-dominant sport, you have something that could be attractive to a female audience. But then also, it technically is cleaner. So do you see a conflict of interest of pulling hydrogen out of Saudi Arabia, where we know there's women's rights are probably about equal to the way they are in the US right now, which is not very good. And then secondly, from an organization or from an area that is known to kind of potentially be not the most sustainable place on the planet, maybe a bit of a oil and gas economy.
I think if you leave Saudi Arabia out of the conversation and you don't work with them, we won't find progress, and we won't even touch the dial that's needed in terms of emissions. And one of our biggest legacies, we talk about legacy all the time with Extreme E and Extreme H. We want to leave behind long-lasting change. That is the way to get change, is to work on progress. They are investing millions into this technology, which is what the technology needs in its infancy. And actually, we're seeing huge amounts of progress from the last 5 years. I think when we first started our championship with Formula E, women couldn't drive in Saudi Arabia. Now they can. That's not necessarily a big tick. That's that's a big
better than nothing.
But now we're working on women's racing programs in Saudi Arabia and getting them into our championship, which we probably will do later this year. So once you engage and you work on progress and you see measurable progress, I got to say that is inspiring. But it's not just about working with Saudi Arabia. I think there are so many countries around the world that now have access to creating their own energy sources. We need to be more in charge domestically of our energy. That's clear. Our security is under threat with our supply chains to energy. And any country in the world that has access to solar, water, wind, renewables, they're starting to create their own energy sources and taking charge of that energy for domestic use, but also exporting. So we're seeing countries that weren't energy players before, Namibia, Iceland, New Zealand, Portugal, Spain. There's about 60 countries on the planet now that have hydrogen strategies in place. So it's not just focused on Saudi Arabia, but we all need to diversify our energy portfolio. And there's a huge amount of movement that can be done towards net zero if we do that.
James, you've spoken about the economics behind hydrogen and hydrogen combustion engine. We haven't spoken at all about the policy environment. What developments do you think need to happen in order for your vision of a fully developed hydrogen transport system to actually work?
The first thing is we have to sort out this country's government and their look at the way they're looking at hydrogen engines.
Talk about that more.
We have, it's called a hydrogen internal combustion engine. Internal combustion engines are something that the Department of Trade have determined is something that cannot be used and cannot be called zero, and therefore it is something that will not be allowed into zero emission zones. We have a great industry here that's building on the back of that. However, we're going to have to go abroad because this country, DFT, are stopping people, including Innovate and APC and other companies, not companies, other organizations that dole out grants and help to develop this market. We're having to think about how we're actually going to get in some grants, because at the moment we have totally funded this ourselves, myself and my partner. It's significant funding. And we're not able to get any support. So you can get it in Europe, Europe, it is approved as a zero emissions propulsion source. So it's something that is a big problem for this country because we're going to have to export jobs. We were looking at employing 600 people. We're going to have to take that abroad. And we're going to, because we can't actually take that forward in this country. Big problem.
What is driving that perception in the UK policy environment versus in the continental European one?
There was a big push towards electric, and we don't actually know the answer. We can read between the lines that we put so much, the various particular Department of Transport, but have put so much effort into electric that now to backtrack is going to be difficult for them. But as I come back to the economists, though, again, they need to, because this is the cheapest and most cost-effective and the quickest way to decarbonise trucks and buses. And so it's an area that we do have problems with.
Is that going to prevent you from being able to grow the sport in this country?
Well, we have a global focus, so it's not just UK. I think we've raced in Scotland before. Scotland has one of the best hydrogen strategies. It's got excellent renewables that it can utilise, but we're looking globally. So what we want to do, I think what we need to do is PR hydrogen, and sport does a very good job of that. It brings people together. It gets people out of the echo chamber where, if you're reading The Economist or the New Scientist, chances are a decent amount about hydrogen, but not everybody does. So sport can actually bring it down to a digestible, understandable level, an exciting level. It can make hydrogen incredibly sexy. That's what motorsport does. So we need to make hydrogen sexy again. So again, we need to make it sexy, and sport can do that. Once you've got, your drivers that you respect, the Sebastian Loebs, the Carlos Sainzes, the Nico Rosbergs, Jenson Buttons, talking about how great hydrogen is, like we did with electric, that's when people really start to listen. And, if we can also, we're not saying we're married to fuel cells. As a platform provider, we're there to PR and raise awareness for hydrogen, how cool it is on all levels. We've chosen fuel cells, specifically with gas, to start us. There are many options. Combustion engines are absolutely an option. Probably in the next couple of years, we'll integrate combustion engines into the platform, and we could see fuel cells, racing combustion. And I think it's interesting when you talk to the automotive manufacturers, and a lot of them are having hydrogen strategies. A lot of them already have hydrogen vehicles, and we can actually use their fuel cells that are already in road-going cars in our car. But the technology's there. But a lot of people's perception is if it doesn't make noise, they're not interested. And when that comes to motorsport, certain places, talking about the certain racing series that you'll know very well, if there's no sound there, the fans are gone. So combustion is a really exciting area to look at, because that way you get to keep the heart and soul and heritage of motorsport, where electric hasn't been able to. So I think it's a really exciting area of technology that you're working on. I'm sure there's ways that we can collaborate. And I think
Definitely.
Actually the key is that collaboration. We're interested in working on the whole ecosystem of storage, propulsion, refueling, transportation, production, and also working at the level of governments, producers, and essentially consumers and end users at the end of the day. And sport really can unite and collaborate. So we're going to certainly be talking more.
We are.
And the future's bright.
Yeah.
And James, one more question. Julia started to mention the world of mega a little bit, but in the form of hydrogen. Do you see a potential risk to the future of hydrogen because of the Trump administration, or is it irrelevant this time around?
Well, he has a great saying, drill, baby, drill. Now, actually, white hydrogen is down there. White hydrogen is, and there's quantities of it. We just haven't found it all yet. And we haven't drilled. And there's a great opportunity for the petrochemical industry to, oil production industry, probably a better way, to actually start looking for it. And it's been found in France. It's been found in Australia. It's long term. It's not the solution. There's going to be a lot of other. No, today it's not real, but it is an option for these guys. And just take Mr. Trump's attitude and use it. how do people work in China? They work in China by listening to what the government says, and then rather than fight it, they just do what the government tells them to do for 5 years. You can do it with Americans too. Say, thank you, Mr. President. You told us to drill. We're drilling. We're going to fight hydrogen.
Well, someone's seen a silver lining in the Trump administration. I'm glad there's one. Thank you, Julia. Thank you, James.
Thank you very much.
Very much.
Thank you.